Welcome in, YouTube. Hello. My name is Ari, and we're going to be talking about how the younger generation is more than likely not going to vote for Joe Biden because of everything that he's done. All right, let's get into it. CNN just posted this video literally hours ago, 21 hours ago, so basically yesterday. Hear what college students think about Biden amid Israel-Hamas war. Dude, it still really irks me when they explain it as Israel-Hamas war, because it's like, in order for it to be a war, you have to be against a country and a sovereignty, and I personally don't find the Gaza Strip to be like a sovereignty or a country of any kind, but like, I guess go off.
He made a few jokes about his age during the annual Thanksgiving turkey pardon, and late tonight, this picture was posted on the president's Instagram account.
Listen, I have a couple of things to say. First of all, Joe Biden looks like he is clinging onto that desk for his dear life. Second of all, he kind of just looks like a geriatric patient.
A cake ablaze with candles. The comment reads, "Thanks for the birthday well wishes today, everyone. Turns out on your 146th birthday, you run out of space for candles."
It's like, we're seriously upset that this man is geriatric and he's basically mocking us.
What is considered one of Biden's biggest political liabilities, his age. Right now, he is showing poorly in the polls, particularly among younger voters. They backed him in 2020 by about 20 points. Polls now show that support collapsing. A new one from NBC shows the former president, Donald Trump, leading President Biden 46 to 42%.
Oh, this is really bad. Wow. My eyes started twitching when I saw this stat. Listen, this is bad, but it's like, are we surprised? No. Did we expect anything else? No. Is this what happens when you do something very unpopular like genocide? Yes. Yes, it is, babes. This is exactly what happens.
Among 18 to 34-year-olds. What's more, 70% of young voters disapprove of Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. The White House press secretary was asked about that disapproval today by our MJ Lee. This is what she said.
But what I'll be very clear about is we're not going to govern by polls here. We're going to, or poll numbers. We're going to focus on delivering for the American people. That's going to be our focus.
Okay, couple of things. Usually I am with ignoring polls, okay? I tell chat this all the time, like, ignore the polls, ignore the polls, ignore the polls. Here's what's different about this time, right? The polls have always discounted the younger generation. Like, the younger generation keeps saying, yeah, we're going to come out and we're going to vote, and then the polls don't really reflect that, right? So the polls have actually been in the favor of Democrats and in the favor of not really taking them seriously on the grand scheme of things, because usually the younger generation that sways the votes for Democrats, they come out in numbers, they show their support, therefore the polls kind of go to trash, right? Like, they don't really matter. Here's the difference though. Polls are very important when they show that the younger generation is supporting Trump by such a large margin, because the younger generation is what has swayed the votes for the past couple of elections, right? So if the younger generation, who is heavily leaning left, if you're losing majority of their support and you're just kind of discounting it and you're like, oh, we're just going to help the American people, not only are you not addressing the issue at hand, you're also just kind of like, we don't really care. We don't really care. You know what I mean? It's all good. We don't care. Because they're going to go into this election with the mindset of like, oh, people hate Trump so much, they're still going to vote for us. But what they don't understand is that they have pissed off the younger generation so freaking much that, like, it's beyond us actually caring whether Trump is going to get reelected or not. I know that's the case for me. And I know this is it's not a good thing to say, and I know it's a controversial thing to say, but like, you reap what you sow. There are consequences for actions. If you continuously ignore Muslim voters, ignore Arab voters, ignore Middle Eastern voters, you continuously ignore indigenous communities, you don't show up for most of the promises that you've made, you get what you have coming for you, which is people being angry and people not voting for you. That's what happens. There are consequences for your actions, and that's how it should always be. You either do a job well, you keep the job, or you do the job bad and you lose it. What we should not do as a society is demonize the people who are really upset and don't want to vote for him. Because instead of being mad at the low income, people of color, Muslim people, Middle Eastern people who have literally gone through it in this country since 9/11, instead of pointing fingers at them and going like, you don't care about democracy, why don't you point fingers at the powers that be? Why don't you hold them accountable? People will literally post anything to make Donald Trump look bad and Biden look good, but they won't do a single thing to hold Biden accountable. But then they'll point fingers at people like myself, Middle Eastern Muslim content creator, and say, well, you are the problem because you don't care about democracy. You don't care about the gay community. You don't care about, people of color. I'm bisexual. I am a person of color. I am a woman with a uterus. All of these things impact me too. And the fact that people are so brazenly just kind of like, oh, you know what? You don't care about democracy. You don't care about this, that, and the third. You're not holding people like Joe Biden accountable. You're just pointing fingers at the people who have been literally going through it for decades in this country. You know what I mean? Like, you're using us as political pawns. That's what it is.
Young voters are the focus of John King's latest installment of his series for 360, All Over the Map. The series tracks the presidential campaign through the eyes and experiences of voters who live in key battleground states. Tonight, Michigan. And John King joins me here now. So, John, what did you find out this time?
Oh, yeah, Joe Biden's definitely lost Michigan. There's no way. Michigan has the largest Muslim and Arab population. There's no way. I'm willing to bet money he's going to lose Michigan.
Imagine you're back in college. You're 18, you're 19, you're 20. 81 seems pretty old. And it's not just the number. They think he's just far away from them on the issues. They think he doesn't understand their issues. Even though he's tried to do some things on college debt, they think they don't get it. So age was an issue anyway with this bedrock piece of the Biden coalition. And now, John, when you go to campus, you see the protests about the Israel-Hamas war. On both sides, people raise questions about how the president's handling it.
Midterms are done. Finals just ahead. There is a rhythm to life on campus, and this fall, a raw divide.
I am an Jewish Israeli American.
Maya Siegman is a sophomore at Wayne State in Michigan, studying social work, chatting with friends here at the Jewish campus organization, Hillel.
Hillel, there's a police officer down the hall. That's not normal.
It is now.
Siegman traveled to Washington last week to join thousands in support of Israel. Now, back on a campus divided.
The division is very clear. The tension on campus is very high.
Wayne State spans 200 acres in downtown Detroit. Ibrahim Ghazal among the 24,000 students.
I'm Muslim, I'm American, I'm Palestinian.
Ghazal calls anti-Semitism horrible and disgusting.
Do you feel the flip side of it? Or are there more
in terms of Islamophobia?
Yeah,
and hate?
more Islamophobia, or people just saying hurtful things?
I think it's disgusting that standing up for children dying and women dying and civilian infrastructure being destroyed is being compared to supporting Hamas. I mean, holding up a Palestinian flag does not support Hamas. Hamas has their own flag. Nobody's carrying their flag.
That's actually very true. Hamas does have their own flag. I'm not going to show it because I don't want to get banned, but that's why it's so stupid when people equate pro-Palestine supporters as well, because Hamas literally has their own flag and they rep the flag pretty hard. And I haven't gone to a single protest where I've seen a Hamas flag. Like, that's not a thing.
This coffee shop is in Dearborn, where about half of the residents are of Arab ancestry. Ghazal and his friends say a president they supported in 2020 is now greenlighting an Israeli response they see as indiscriminate.
And I don't think our country should fund that type of reaction.
Do you feel this way?
To an extent, yes. I feel as though President Biden doesn't value my life as a Muslim American as much as he values other lives.
Young voters were a giant part of the Biden 2020 coalition, and this urban campus tilts deep blue.
If it's Biden-Trump next November, you would?
I'd go Biden.
Summer Matkin is just 18, a theater major, an esports enthusiast,
Here, I got you.
and an LGBTQ voter who wishes President Biden would yield to someone younger.
I think that weird generational gap is something that is very, very hard for young people. So when there's certain things that we want to be heard as young people, you know, with not only, you know, the conflict out with Israeli and Palestine people, but we also have like student loan forgiveness and all of these different financial problems that aren't being handled when they are very much capable of being handled.
Matkin isn't ruling out voting third party, but
Feels like a weird kind of throwaway vote.
Joseph Fisher used to think that way, but right now he favors a socialist party. In 2020, Fisher was just 17, but he helped the ACLU register voters back home in Georgia.
So you helped Joe Biden get elected.
I did, yes.
What about 2024?
I will not vote for Joe Biden. Not this.
Period. Point blank, period. That is exactly how I feel. As a person that helped Michigan flip completely blue, as a person who got recognized by the Washington Post in a feature article for all of the work that I did on social media to flip this country blue, mostly, I have done the work to get Joe Biden elected, and I will not be doing that work ever again. To be quite honest with you, it's no one's business to tell me how to feel. Even if you vehemently disagree with me, that is my choice as an American voter.
This is Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan. Students writing the names of Palestinians killed in Gaza.
One of our demands that we're pressuring admin for right now is complete divestment from the state of Israel.
You say genocide.
Yes, I do say.
The Prime Minister of Israel or the President of the United States would say response to terrorism.
Absolutely. It's absolutely essential that we call it for what it is, a genocide, and also say that it doesn't start on October 7th. It started in 1948 with the creation of the colonial state of Israel.
Some Jewish students say talk like that, beliefs like that, are stoking an alarming rise in anti-Semitism.
I wish it wasn't like this, but this is what we live right now.
50,000 students.
I'm not acknowledging what happened to Israel on October 7th, but I'm not exactly sure why she's painting herself as a victim entirely. I do believe that anti-Semitism is real, 100%, and I'm really happy that she's getting the guarding that she needs to stay safe. But when you look at the proportions of how many Palestinian people and children are getting murdered, their civilian homes, infrastructure getting bombed, the journalists that are getting murdered by dozens and dozens and dozens, it's giving a little bit of victim complex here, but like, I don't know, maybe I need to hear her talk a little bit more.
Here in Ann Arbor, and interest in the college Democrats is up.
We've had 50, 40, 30 consistently for meetings. And
in the past, it has been closer to maybe 10, 15, 20.
Seniors and co-presidents of the college Democrats, Anushka Jalasatki and Jade Gray, helped generate big turnout here in 2020 and again in 2022. They have weekly meetings now to plan 2024.
Should we have somebody younger? Does that come up much?
absolutely, it comes up. And I think that that's it's a real point to make. It's a real conversation to be had.
The immediate challenge, though, is seeing students who agree on things like abortion rights and defending democracy at odds over the Israel-Hamas crisis and President Biden's response.
You know, Mr. President, I've seen you take key humanitarian steps, but I think the next step is a ceasefire.
What key humanitarian steps is she talking about?
And I think that that would go a long way with voters.
We don't know what's going to happen, next week or next month. But if the election were tomorrow, do you think that it is more likely some of your members would sit out or look for another option, third party?
Yep.
Because they're mad at the president about this?
Some of them, yes, they have shared with us that maybe this is making me reconsider.
Is it fair to say you're glad the election's not tomorrow?
Yes.
This makes me so upset because I'm just like, it's like, yeah, we should be glad that the election isn't tomorrow, but why don't we hold Joe Biden more accountable? Like, people are so scared to hold him accountable. It's something that really annoys me because it's like, you're very obviously and clearly scared to hold Joe Biden accountable. And it's just like, that's not how it should be. You should be able to hold Joe Biden accountable without being scared or feeling like you have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know what I mean? I want to see what the polls say.
We have a brand new NBC News poll out this morning, which shows the toll it is taking on the president. I'm joined now by national political correspondent Steve Kornacki to take us through the numbers. Steve, some real stunning highlights here in this poll.
Absolutely, and I think you're right to set it up that way. What's happening in the Middle East, it really does seem to be connecting with what's happening domestically in our politics. Let's start with the bottom line here. President Biden, what is his job approval rating? We measure it now at 40% with 57% disapproval.
I wonder, I may be wrong. It may have gone lower when we did the Afghanistan pullout. I don't remember. I might be wrong though, because I remember when we pulled out of Afghanistan, the ratings went really low too because people were mad at how he did it. Although that was more Trump's fault than him. I don't like Joe Biden, but you know, fact is fact. It was mostly Trump's fault for that. But this is very interesting. I don't think I've seen the polls this low for a very long time.
Proving the significance. That is the lowest.
Yeah, I remember him polling in the 30s at one point, and I'm pretty sure it was because of the Afghanistan pullout. I could be wrong, though.
President Biden has ever measured in our poll in terms of job approval. And just look at the sea change from the start of this year. Remember, early this year, Democrats coming off a strong 2022 midterm. He was almost even. Now he's 17 points underwater on
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely because of the war.
this question.
Significant dip there, Steve.
It is, and you can actually, if you take a look here by party, I think it's significant for two reasons. One, independents, obviously, more than 2-1 disapprove. You don't want to be there as an incumbent president, but I think equally significant, no surprise, 7% of Republicans approve of Joe Biden's job performance, but 3 times as many Democrats, 21%, that's more than 1 in 5, say they disapprove. You need much more unified support in your own party if you're going to have a successful re-election.
Oh, wow, this is really bad. Okay, so he's polling 91% with Republicans, whatever, that's fine. But he's polling 63% disapproval with independents and 21% disapproval with Democrats. This is a really big deal because if he is running and the swing states are the people who populate the most disapproval ratings, that's not a good thing. I think the 77 approval rating is probably from like people that are like Democrat, you know, like vote blue no matter who type people. People can forget or not care about this on election day. So I would have to disagree with you, mainly because I think what's happening in Palestine, I think the public's reaction has been so... Like, I haven't seen this kind of turnout since George Floyd. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't seen this kind of turnout in a very long time. I haven't seen this kind of coverage in a very long time. I don't know if this is one of those things that people are just going to get over time. Now, I will say this. If Israel is able to come to a ceasefire and say, okay, listen, we are not going to bomb you anymore. We're going to help rebuild the infrastructure. I do think there's a lot of place for him to grow back the approval. But if this continues to go on, if Gaza continues to get bombed, if children continue to die in the Gaza Strip and we continue to see clips of it, I don't think he has a great chance. And I think a lot of more Democrats and liberals need to accept this as well, because this is the first time in the history of America that a American-backed war has been publicly broadcasted through social media. Like, we always heard that, okay, 1 million Iraqi civilians died, more than 500,000 Afghan Iraqi civilians died. We heard about all of this, right? But we never saw images, unfiltered images through social media, right? We were only fed those images through established corporate media like NBC, CNN, etc. This is the first time in history that we are literally seeing clips and videos of children getting their heads blown into a crater, like just publicly getting shared everywhere. So, although I would normally agree that people are just going to forget about this, I think there's something about all of the clips that we have seen and all of the egregious things that we have covered that I don't think any average person with a heart can just like move on and get over from. You know what I mean? I don't care if the elections are tomorrow. I don't care if they're November 6th next year. I'm not voting for Joe Biden. But then again, I'm a Middle Eastern Muslim woman, and it impacts me very differently than the average person. It's done for. It's done in the, like, it's dead in the water. I'm not voting for him. There's no stone that can be flipped or job that can be done that's going to change me voting for him. And for someone like me, that's kind of a big deal because I do have a platform that leans left. I could do a lot of work to get him elected like I did last time, but I'm not going to do that because I think that there should be consequences for actions. I would find it very hard to believe a lot of the generation is just going to get over this.
Campaign. And we mentioned the drop in that approval rating and the connection to the Middle East. And here it is. On foreign policy, 33% approve of Joe Biden's job performance. Just in September, we asked the same question, and it was 41-53.
These numbers surprised our own pollsters, Steve, with one saying he cannot remember a time when a foreign entanglement that didn't involve U.S. troops had the capacity to transform the electorate. And that's not the case in this poll.
No, and go even a step further on this one. I think this jumps out at you, too. Overall, this is the handling of the Israel-Hamas war. And again, it kind of measures overall up with Biden's foreign policy approval. But look at this. Among the oldest group of voters, 65 plus, there's a majority who approve of how Biden is handling this.
There's a moth flying around my computer.
That's plus 12. Look at the youngest group of voters. 20 approve, 70%.
This is interesting. So from the generation 65 and up, 53% still approve of him, 41% disapprove. The younger generation, only 20% approves of him. Here's the thing. I hope the Democrats, I hope they see this, right? They take the younger generation's vote for granted. They really do. Exactly. I really hope that this catastrophic poll is going to wake them up and make them realize they need to start catering to the younger generation if they want to win. These polls, if these numbers stay the same, Democrats are going to have a very, very, very hard time reelecting Joe Biden. I'm going to be honest with you. Because the only reason why Democrats did not lose the House by a large margin was because of the younger generation. The younger generation came out in record numbers for Joe Biden when he ran. So they're either going to listen to the younger generation or they're not. They're going to fuck around and find out.
Disapprove. He is 50 points underwater with the youngest group of voters. That is a 62-point net swing between youngest and oldest on this topic of Israel-Hamas.
And it's a critical group of voters that he needs in order to win re-election, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So we're showing you Biden's problems here, and the question is, who will the Republicans nominate to oppose him? And again, Donald Trump towering above the field here, two others in double digits. Compare this to our last poll, and again, Trump is steady. The only growth you're really seeing, the only change, it's right there. Nikki Haley, she grew last time. She grew a little bit more this time into double digits.
And those numbers are fueled by non-Trump voters. I've been talking to sources inside Trump world who say they're not panicking because of that. But it's clear she's got some real momentum here, Steve.
She does, and her challenge is just what you say. You look at voters who call themselves conservative, very conservative. They're very pro-Trump. They seem a little reluctant, a little resistant to her. She's got a breakthrough, not just with moderates and independents. She's got a breakthrough with core.
Okay, Nikki Haley doesn't, no, she does not stand a chance.
Republican voters who like Donald Trump, if she wants to make this a real game with Trump. Okay, so if we are heading towards Trump, Biden, a rematch in 2024, how does that look in our polling right now? Here it is. Wow. Donald Trump, we have at 46%, Biden, 44%.
And this is significant because this is the first time.
Okay, so Trump is basically leading in most of the polls. That's what we're seeing. Most of the polls, Trump is leading. Not by a huge margin, but by a significant margin. Significant enough to where it should worry everyone.
Time in the history of our poll that former President Trump beats President Biden, still within the margin of error, but still significant.
Yeah, in 2019, 2020, when Trump was president, he trailed all of them. This year, he's trailed all of them in our poll. First time in more than a dozen polls, we've seen a result like this. Some of the other ingredients that go into that, Biden has long had an advantage over Trump on likability. Look, at the start of this year, 39% said they had a positive view of Biden, barely 30% of Trump. We've seen consistently a gap like this. Now, the gap is gone. 36 positive on both, and actually Biden 1 point more negative than Trump. That's been a significant advantage for Biden. Our poll says that advantage, at least for now, may be gone. And we talked about younger voters.
Do you understand how fucking bad you have to be to pull this low against Donald Trump? Like, Donald Trump is really, 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 really fucking bad. For you to pull this low against someone like Donald Trump, that is embarrassing. This needs to be a wake-up call.
Voters on foreign policy, and it's true on a host of other topics. Disaffected with Joe Biden, we have 46% for Trump, 42% for Biden among the youngest voters. The youngest voters in the 2020 election were Biden plus 26. This could be a massive sea change. And if you take a look here, too, everybody sort of says, hey, I'm not too nuts about the possibility of this matchup. So we said, let's measure this one way. And here's how we did it. Biden against an unnamed Republican. This is just a referendum on Biden, basically. And look at this. He goes from being in a dogfight with Trump to being double digits behind. But
Damn. Yo, this is crazy. So if it's Joe Biden against some random Republican, you're talking about an 11-point difference in margin, like margin difference. But Donald Trump scares enough Democrats to where they're like, we don't want to vote him back. This is actually crazy.
But then flip it around. Trump against an unnamed Democrat. Trump goes from leading against Biden to being down by 6 points against the Democrat.
Just a fascinating look at the state of the race with just a little under a year to go. Steve Kornacki, great stuff. Thank you so much for being here.
I will say this much, next year is going to be a huge year for Democrats. Huge year. And if they don't get it together and they don't call for a ceasefire or make a ceasefire happen in some shape or form, they are not going to win. They're going to have a very hard race. I hate to say it, but they are going to have an extremely hard race. There's still time to where they can call for a ceasefire, advocate for a ceasefire, make it happen, and then try to work from there so that people can hopefully move on by the time it's election time. But if you can't do that in the near future, it's not going to be a good look. But thank you so much for coming to my YouTube channel. I appreciate you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment for more news videos. And I will see you guys next time.